All right, everybody. So, welcome back. And now I have a professional looking microphone. So, hopefully, you can hear me better. And my nasally voice will be even more nasally than ever before. Okay, so we have now our textured dreidel. It has been animated. Well, it's been rigged and animated. So now it turns. And now the only thing left to do is to set up a little, very simple scene with a background and some lights. And then we're going to render it. So that's what this video is going to be about. All right, first thing, let's make a little background. We want to make kind of a smooth background, sort of like if you go to a photo studio and they have that big colored piece of paper behind you that goes from the wall down to the floor, and they'll just make like a little kind of nondescript background. Of course, it's super simple, but it'll be enough for this. All right, how are we going to do that? Let's keep things as simple as possible. I turned back on my floor and my axes just so I sort of see what's going on a little bit better. All right, I'm going to add a plane. Shift A, make a plane. Make that plane much, much larger because it's very small now. Okay, and you can kind of scale it on the X more than the Y because it should be like a rectangle like this. Okay, great. Now what you should do is you should move this thing so it just touches the bottom of the dreidel. GZ, move it down, move it down, move it down. I'm going to go to the front view. I'm going to check that. Maybe I'll move it up a little bit just so it just gets the bottom of the dreidel. Okay, it's good enough for now. Maybe I'll move it after, but that's fine. All right, now that I have sort of a floor thing, let's apply that transformation. Control A, all transforms. All right, I'm going to move it back a little bit. GY. Well, I could have done that in edit mode, but I'm doing it there. All right, let's go to edit mode. Tab. I'm going to turn off this floor because it's very distracting. All I want to do is make an edge somewhere past the dreidel, and I'm going to show you what it's going to be. I'm going to select an edge here. Turn off these axes so it's not super confusing. Select one of these edges here, not that one, but this one. And then I'm going to do a Control R and make one loop cut kind of maybe back there. And then I'm going to select this edge here in the back, which you can barely see, but that one there. Go to side view and just move it. So I have like the wall basically. So now I'm moving it and I have the wall. Great. And I might move this whole thing back a little bit so the dreidel, so it's the wall isn't right in back of the dreidel. Press A to select the entire thing. G, Y if it's a bit too far forward. And now, okay, that's okay because the camera is going to be like there. I might even just do this. Take that edge, the front edge, and GY and move it forward. And that way you just have like a lot of space. Okay, cool. Well, the problem with this is it's all very good. I'm going to go back to my flat view. It's all very good except for this makes a very harsh line. So what we're going to do is bevel this so it's kind of a curved line, like so it looks more like that kind of piece of colored paper that you have in the photo studio. Select that line, Control B, and it probably will look like this. Scroll your mouse wheel so that there's quite a bunch of subdivisions, so it's kind of smooth. Did it something like that. It's probably okay. I don't know, I guess I did 8 segments. Something kind of like that. And now if I go into regular mode, it looks striated, but I have to now right click and go into shade smooth. So I just shaded this smooth so you don't see all the different polygons. And now if I go into the rendered view, it's pretty good. Okay, there we go. I might even move the whole thing back a little bit, GY, just to give the dreidel a bit more space, and I'm going to just set those, all the transformations I did. Okay, cool. Great, that's our backdrop. But let's give it some color, because now it's just white. Your backdrop probably doesn't have any color, so you're going to have to press this to make a new material, and put it whatever color you like. I'll just put it like kind of a grayish color. And the one thing that you can do to make it not so shiny is take the roughness value and put it quite a ways up. So you're really not seeing it as anything, it's just more like it's a background. If I put it like that, it's shiny. If I put it like that, it's matte. So I don't know, I kind of kept it kind of matte. And I just want to make sure that this is touching the bottom, like the floor. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so we have our backdrop. Now, we're going to have to now light this scene. Right now you notice that my thing is set to material preview. I could also be going on shading and It would normally it opens up in Material Preview, so it should maybe look something like that. Now, that's great, and it does seem that there are lights here. The problem is this is not actually what the rendered view is going to look like. The rendered view, or what you actually render, is going to look like this final tab to the right. So now you've been working on these two. We're going to go all the way to the right, and you're going to see it's probably pretty dark. It might even be darker than this. It might look, like something like that. And then you're like, wow, well, this is way too dark. Well, there's a very quick way of adjusting some basics, which is go to where it says strength here. Oh, sorry. I have to tell you where actually to go. Go onto the world tab. The thing that looks like a globe with a red circle. So you might have been maybe like you're on modifiers or something. Go to this world tab, world properties. It's the world with the line through it, not the bottom one, which is materials. This is the general settings for the whole environment, not any particular model or anything, but just the whole environment. The world is like the whole environment. So if I want to control global lighting settings or any kind of global settings, I go here. So now at this point you have sort of a background color, and I'm going to set it to, first of all, it might even be gray or something. It might be something like that. I'm going to just set it to white, and I'm going to put the strength up a little bit so that this kind of gives a general lighting to the scene, that so you can actually see something. I'm not going to go crazy because I'm going to add also a light. Okay, so right now there is a light that's on. I'm going to turn it off. It just didn't, so you don't even see what's going on here. I'll move that down there. Okay, that's without any of the light. Your scene probably looks more like something like this. Okay, so you can have it be, about something like this is okay, where it's just kind of lit to some extent, but it's kind of dim. All right, now we're going to actually put a light, the light that came with the scene. So if you have a light there from the beginning, great, turn it on. It probably won't look like this. It'll probably look like this. Very dim. Probably won't even notice much. First of all, to be sure that you actually have the light, make sure that you click here where it says viewport shading. Just make sure that the scene lights are on. It shouldn't make any difference, but click that. Make sure that the scene lights are on so you can see what you're doing. That's without the scene lights, that's with the lights. Okay, so first thing is your light is probably set at something like this. Probably the default is, I'm going to put it to 1 here. Probably something like this where you can't see much. That's because the power is just too small for this scene. It's kind of like the wattage of the lights. Usually you have to put this much higher. So this is now at 1,000, I don't know, watts. I'm going to put it to 3,000 and see what happens. And then I start to get more light. Now the position of the light is also a big thing, but let's just for now put it to 3,000 or maybe even 4,000. So at least we have something. And if you zoom out, now we see, well, that's the light. This is the light. First of all, how did I even access those settings? Let me show you. So let's say you're on here and you're doing stuff, and then maybe you're on here and you're trying to figure out how do I change the light? Click the light first of all. Go here in the little light bulb next to the light and you click that. That is what gives you access to the controls of the light. It's this little icon next to where it says light. It's really the only way to actually sort of get this menu. So I open that up and then I can change this to 4,000 or something like that. Okay, now that I've done that and the light is kind of there, visible, I'll just switch to my front setting and just move the light until it looks like something that looks kind of nice. So it has sort of a dramatic effect. Maybe something like that, so that you can see sort of the shadows a little bit, and not like crazy bright, but something like that looks nice. So I'll kind of set it like that. This was a little bit of shadow there. It's kind of pleasant. Okay, couple of basic settings to be sure that this is actually going to work. You have to set up the way that it's going to be rendered. So click this Render Properties tab here. Right over here, the thing that looks like an old school camera. This is going to control basically all the way that it's being rendered. So first of all, you see that on the top it says Render Engine EV. Keep it there for now. If for some reason it's on cycles, put it back to EV for today. We're going to look at cycles later on in the course. Keep it at EV. Keep all this stuff as it is. Tick shadows. If shadows is not ticked, tick it. And you notice what happens when I untick shadows. There's no shadow, so it looks ridiculous. If I tick shadows, suddenly there's an actual shadow that would be produced depending on the angle of the light. So it tracks the way the light is and it creates a shadow that makes sense. Another thing you need you should turn on is this thing that says ray tracing. Ray tracing is a way of making the results much better and more believable looking. So when it's off, it looks like this. When you tick it, it gives those richer shadows and it just looks much, much better. So make sure that ray tracing is ticked. And that's about it. You don't really need anything more. Just make sure that shadows are ticked and ray tracing. Okay, let's go back to this. So at this point, you have some lighting set up and you have your dreidel. Now we have to set up the camera to see at what angle we're going to do it. But before we set up the camera, we need to kind of tell Blender how big is the image going to be. Is it going to be kind of a square image? Is it going to be sort of a rectangular image? So, and where is this actually going to be saved in your computer? When you record this little video, where is it going to go on your computer? So all of these many questions can be solved by going to this little thing. It looks like a photocopy machine. It's third from the top, output properties. I click on output properties and I have all this stuff. The resolution X and Y really is the size. It's the actual size of the image. And it's probably going to be set to something else. It's okay for now. You can keep it as it's set. But if you look at this, I'm going to just click something and you're going to see that right away you're going to understand what it is in a moment. So I'm going to tell you how to do this later, but I just clicked the camera. If I change this to, let's say, 1500, it actually changes the size of the image. That's what's going to be recorded. So this is like an image, kind of like portrait. If I change this to, like 3000 pixels, it's really the proportion. Now it's more of a widescreen. And the amount of pixels means the resolution. So if I did something like this, let's just say 10 pixels by 3, it's kind of a rectangle. Oh, sorry, by 4. So it's like a 10:4 ratio. But that means that it is only, the entire image is only 10 pixels wide, which is going to look absolutely terrible. So you don't want to have a resolution which is that low because it's just going to be a crappy looking image. So you might want to have for this maybe something like 2000 and maybe, let's say 1500. Let's see that. Maybe something like that. Okay, that's probably okay. Okay, so that's set. Now the next thing is the output. By default, the video that you record is going to be stored in some kind of weird file that you're never going to be able to find. So you don't want that. First of all, you want to click this button and you want to choose some area that you're actually going to be able to find. So let's say for now desktop, and I'm going to just, so that when it's recorded, it ends up going onto the desktop. So okay, great, desktop, accept. It's going to go on my desktop right now when I record this. Really important because you want to know where the video went so you can find it. And the next thing is I have to go and find out the file format. When you record animation, there's basically two options. Either you're recording a whole bunch of still photos, which you would do if you were like a professional because you take all the still photos and put them together yourself. We do not want that. We want this to be recorded as a video. So we're going to choose movie FFmpeg video. That is what the format should be for this particular project because you're going to record it onto a video. So make sure this is set to file extension, output somewhere you can find it. And this is FFmpeg video. Very important. And the frame rate should be 24 frames per second. That should be fine. And this is all what you already set it to. So that's good. Okay, you're good there. You're good with the render. Let's set the camera up now. Okay. So to set the camera up, we're gonna start off with sort of the close-up. How we want it to look at the end. Now, actually, we'll start off with the far shot. So, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna zoom in. So start it off maybe something like this, and just literally just position the screen to the way that you like it. So maybe I'll kind of do like that. It's not exactly in the center. Maybe I'll move it up a little bit so I can, okay, let's say something like that. Now that you have the position the way you want, you press Control Alt and 0 on your numpad. Control Alt and 0 or Command Option 0. And that will now give you the camera view in the way that you saw it in the viewport. So I want to kind of fine tune this a little bit. Let's say that you say, it's good, but I like to adjust it a bit. Click on camera. And now using the G key, press G, and you can now fine tune the actual angle in the way that you want. So let's say that I press G and I kind of move it like that. Now let's say, you know what, I want it to be zoomed out a little bit because I want to start this kind of far away. I press G and move the middle mouse, kind of just push the middle mouse and zoom out a little bit, and I say, all right, okay, that's a bit better. And maybe I'll press G again and center it. Okay, that is my initial camera angle. And to get out of the camera, I press this, and this gets me in and out. Okay? So, and by the way, if you're doing like this and you press just 0 on the numpad, it gets you immediately back into the camera angle. Great, so I have my lighting, I have my camera angle, everything's cool. So the one thing left to do is, I could just render this right now, but I want to animate a camera zoom. I want to actually have the camera zoom in during the animation. So let us do this. I'm going to get out of shading, back to layout here. Okay, let me click on that so I get my camera. Okay. So, and I'll put on my thing so I know what it looks like. And it just turns as it did before. So now you should be seeing this. Make sure that now with the camera as it is, you should be able to just press play and the model will rotate. Great. Now let's do that final little bit where we're going to animate the actual camera movement. So it's the same way that we animated the dreidel. We have to be on camera because that's the thing that's going to be moving. I'm going to press N to get our location here. All right, let's say we already set our camera up, so that is the initial location. So make sure that you rewind your frames so it's on frame 1. You have this location here, hover above it and press I. Okay, I. Maybe I just want to just make sure this, all channels, yes. So now that is established that your very first, the animation starts with your camera out here. Now I'm going to zoom in. And let's say that I want it to be fully zoomed almost at the end. Okay, so let me zoom in now. All I do have to do is press G and middle mouse button and zoom in. And I don't have to just zoom, I can also move the camera a little bit. Like that. Maybe that's a little too close. Okay, that's my final position. I am going to press I again. And just to be sure. All right, let's try this. See that, kids? It's zooming in, and at the end, it ends up being zoomed in. Okay, everybody, we are now ready to render. We set up our background, our lights, we've set up our settings, we got our camera, we even animated our camera movement. So now we're ready to actually render the animation. The one last thing to do is before you render anything, go here to the outliner on the upper right. Now, if you're looking at the scene in the way that it's supposed to look, make sure that everything that you see, which would mean that there's an eyeball on it, has this little camera on it. If this camera thing isn't on, it's not going to render it. So that means everything with a camera is the thing that's going to be rendered. So for example, this is on and that's on. Great. That's on and that's on, that's on and that's on. Pay careful attention to something like this. If you see something like that, which means that I'm not seeing it on screen, but I'm seeing this camera, this will render. So what that is that's the actual armature. If this was on, even though I wouldn't see it in the viewport, when I rendered it, you'd see this bone sitting there in the middle of the animation. So basically, make sure that what you see is exactly what is a camera next to. So everything you see should be a camera next to it, and if you don't see it, there should be no camera, because otherwise you'll get some weird surprises. All right, now that you've done that, make sure everything's good. I just go to render and I'm going to press render animation, and you'll see what happens. It'll start to render each frame one by one. And of course, I'm not going to wait for the whole thing because it would take a few minutes. But if it all works well, your video will be rendered, and it will be sent to that file that you picked at the beginning. All right, let's try it, and then I'll talk a little bit, and I'll say goodbye. Look at this, and now it's rendering, it's turning around, and each of these is one frame. In this case, we had 99 frames, and once it's finished, your video will be complete, and it'll look fantastic. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you learned stuff, and I'll see you in class. Goodbye. Bye bye.